It was 2:17 a.m. on March 15th, 1991, when Prince Harry's screams shattered the careful silence of Kensington Palace. The sound echoed through corridors that had witnessed centuries of royal composure, bouncing off ancient portraits whose subjects had never been allowed to show such raw, desperate emotion. Diana was already running before she was fully awake. Her bare feet slapped against the cold marble floors as she rushed down the hallway, her silk nightgown trailing behind her like a pale ghost. She had learned to recognize each of her children's cries with the precision of a mother whose heart lived permanently on alert. This wasn't Harry's "I'm hungry" cry or his "I want attention" whine. This was terror in its purest form. She burst through Harry's bedroom door to find her 6-year-old son sitting bolt upright in his bed, his small body trembling so violently that the royal monogrammed sheets shook around him. His red hair was plastered to his sweaty forehead, and his blue eyes were wide with the kind of fear that made Diana's chest tighten with protective fury. "Mummy!" Harry sobbed, reaching his arms toward her with the desperate urgency of a drowning child grasping for a lifeline. "The monsters came back. They were chasing me, and I couldn't run fast enough, and they were getting closer and closer, and—" Diana was beside him before he could finish the sentence, pulling him against her chest and feeling his rapid heartbeat against her ribs. "Shh, darling," she whispered, her voice automatically dropping into the soft, soothing tone that seemed to live permanently ready in her throat. "You're safe. Mummy's here. It was just a dream, sweetheart. Just a horrible dream." But even as she spoke the comforting words, Diana could feel that this nightmare had been different. Harry's trembling wasn't subsiding the way it usually did. His grip on her arms was desperate, almost painful in its intensity. Whatever he had seen in his sleep had shaken something deep inside him, something that wouldn't be easily calmed by standard maternal comfort. The night duty officer, James Morrison, appeared in the doorway, his uniform slightly disheveled from sleep. "Your Royal Highness, is everything quite all right? The screaming? We heard it from the security post." Diana looked up at him over Harry's head, noting the concern in his eyes. James had children of his own, and she could see him recognizing the particular quality of distress in Harry's cries. "Thank you, James. Prince Harry had a nightmare. We'll be fine." But as the security officer retreated, closing the door quietly behind him, Diana realized that they might not be fine. Not this time. Harry's sobs were increasing rather than decreasing, and she could feel a different kind of desperation in the way he clung to her. "Mummy," Harry whispered against her shoulder, his voice muffled and wet with tears. "I can't stop seeing them. Every time I close my eyes, they're still there. What if they come back? What if they get me next time?" Diana felt something crack inside her chest. Here was her little boy, 6 years old and already carrying fears that seemed too heavy for such small shoulders. She thought of all the standard royal responses she had been trained to give. Call the nanny, summon the doctor, maintain proper protocol, even in private moments. But looking down at Harry's tear-streaked face, all of those careful rules seemed suddenly meaningless. "Do you know what we need?" Diana said, making a decision that would have horrified every royal protocol officer in the palace. "We need some proper hot chocolate, the kind that chases away all the bad dreams and makes everything feel safe again." Harry lifted his head slightly, his blue eyes still swimming with tears, but now holding a flicker of curiosity. "Hot chocolate? At nighttime?" "Especially at nighttime," Diana said, smoothing his damp hair away from his forehead. "That's when hot chocolate works its best magic, but not the kind that comes from a packet. We need the real kind, made with proper milk and real chocolate, and a little bit of love stirred in." "But Mummy," Harry said, his voice still shaky but no longer quite so desperate, "we're not supposed to go to the kitchen at night. Mrs. Pemberton says the kitchen is closed after dinner, and we mustn't disturb the staff when they're sleeping." Diana looked at her son, this little boy who had already learned so many rules about what he could and couldn't do, where he could and couldn't go, how he was supposed to behave even in his own home. For a moment, she felt a flash of anger at the system that had already begun to cage him with expectations and limitations. "Well," Diana said, standing up and reaching for Harry's dressing gown, "sometimes mummies have special privileges, And sometimes when little boys have very bad nightmares, all the usual rules need to take a little break. Harry's eyes widened. We're really going to the kitchen? In the middle of the night? We're really going to the kitchen, Diana confirmed, wrapping him in his dressing gown and then reaching for her own robe. Just you and me, on a proper adventure. The hallways of Kensington Palace were transformed at night. During the day, they bustled with staff and visitors, filled with the controlled energy of royal business. But at 2:30 in the morning, they became something else entirely. The moonlight streaming through tall windows created patterns of silver and shadow on the floor. Ancient portraits seemed to watch them pass with knowing eyes, as if they had witnessed countless other moments of royal rebellion over the centuries. Harry walked close beside Diana, his small hand firmly grasped in hers. She could feel him looking around with wonder, seeing his home from this new perspective. It's so quiet, he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might break some sort of spell. That's because everyone else is sleeping, Diana whispered back. But you and I were having our own special time together. Sometimes the best adventures happen when the rest of the world is dreaming. As they approached the main kitchen, Diana felt her heart rate pick up slightly. She was about to break several layers of protocol simultaneously. Members of the royal family did not enter the working areas of the palace unaccompanied. They certainly did not wake staff members for non-emergency requests. And they absolutely did not prepare their own food in the professional kitchen that employed a full staff of trained chefs. But looking down at Harry's face, still pale from his nightmare, but now bright with anticipation, Diana found that she didn't care about any of those rules. The kitchen was dark except for the small security lights that cast a dim glow over the massive space. Commercial-grade equipment gleamed dully in the shadows. Enormous ovens, industrial mixers, rows of copper pots hanging from ceiling racks. This was Mrs. Pemberton's domain, and it felt almost sacred in its nighttime stillness. Diana reached for the light switch, hesitating for just a moment before flooding the space with warm yellow light. The kitchen sprang to life around them, revealed in all its professional glory. Wow, Harry breathed, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. It's so much bigger than our kitchen at Highgrove. Diana smiled, remembering the smaller, more intimate kitchen at their country home, where she sometimes made simple meals for the boys. This space was designed for feeding dozens of people, for state dinners and formal entertaining. It wasn't meant for a mother and her frightened child making hot chocolate at 2:30 in the morning. But that, Diana thought, was exactly what made this moment so perfect. Now, she said, rolling up the sleeves of her robe, we need to find some proper chocolate. Not the powder, but real chocolate bars that we can melt ourselves. Harry began opening cupboards with the enthusiasm of a treasure hunter, his nightmare already seeming less vivid in the bright warmth of the kitchen. Here, he called, pulling out a bar of dark chocolate. This looks proper, doesn't it? Diana examined the chocolate, noting its quality. Mrs. Pemberton kept only the finest ingredients in her kitchen. That's perfect, darling. Now we need milk and a saucepan and something to stir with. They worked together, Harry standing on a step stool beside the enormous range while Diana heated milk in a small copper saucepan. The familiar domestic ritual felt strange and wonderful in this grand setting. Diana found herself actually enjoying the simple act of cooking, something she rarely had the opportunity to do in her carefully managed royal life. Why don't you break the chocolate into pieces? Diana suggested, handing Harry the bar. Small pieces melt better. Harry applied himself to the task with serious concentration, his tongue poking out slightly as he worked. Diana watched him, struck by how normal this felt despite the extraordinary setting. How many mothers around the world were soothing their children's nightmares right now? How many were making hot chocolate in their own kitchens, creating small moments of comfort in the dark hours of the night? The milk began to steam, and Diana added the chocolate pieces, watching them slowly dissolve into creamy richness. The smell that rose from the saucepan was incredible. Rich, comforting, full of promise. It smells like Christmas, Harry observed, peering into the pan. It smells like love, Diana said, stirring gently with a wooden spoon. That's when they heard the footsteps. Diana froze, the spoon still in her hand, as the kitchen door swung open to reveal Mrs. Pemberton, the head cook. The older woman stood in the doorway, wearing a thick robe over her nightgown, her gray hair in curlers, her expression cycling through confusion, alarm, and finally settling on something that might have been dismay. "Your Royal Highness," Mrs. Pemberton said, her voice carefully controlled despite obviously having been awakened from deep sleep. "I heard noises in the kitchen. I thought perhaps we had intruders." Diana felt Harry press closer to her side, and she could sense his sudden anxiety. Had they done something wrong? Would they be in trouble now? "Mrs. Pemberton," Diana said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nervousness in her chest. "I'm so sorry to wake you. Prince Harry had a terrible nightmare, and I thought some proper hot chocolate might help." Mrs. Pemberton's eyes moved from Diana to Harry, taking in the little boy's still pale face and the way he was clinging to his mother's side. Diana could see the older woman processing the situation, weighing protocol against compassion. "Your Royal Highness," Mrs. Pemberton said carefully, "perhaps I could prepare something for Prince Harry and bring it up to his room. You needn't trouble yourself with—" "I want to make it myself," Diana interrupted gently. "I want Harry to see me making it, to be part of the process. I think that's what he needs right now." The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it felt much longer. Diana was acutely aware that she was asking Mrs. Pemberton to allow something that went against every protocol the woman had been trained to follow. Kitchen staff prepared food. Royalty consumed it. That was how things worked. But Mrs. Pemberton was also a mother. She had raised 3 children of her own, and she could recognize the particular exhausted tenderness in Diana's voice, the protective way she kept one hand on Harry's shoulder. "Of course, Your Royal Highness," Mrs. Pemberton said finally. "Would you like me to assist?" "Actually," Diana said, surprising herself with her boldness, "would it be terribly presumptuous if I asked you to simply let us finish this ourselves? I think Harry might benefit from having this be our special moment together." Mrs. Pemberton studied Diana's face for a long moment, and Diana could see decades of royal service warring with maternal understanding in her expression. Finally, the older woman nodded. "I'll leave you to it then," she said. "But Your Royal Highness, please do be careful with the range. It can be temperamental." After Mrs. Pemberton retreated, Diana and Harry stood in silence for a moment, both processing what had just happened. "Are we in trouble?" Harry whispered. Diana looked down at her son and felt something shift inside her, a sense of clarity that cut through all the complicated rules and expectations that usually governed their lives. "No, sweetheart," she said firmly. "We're not in trouble. We're just being ourselves." She returned her attention to the hot chocolate, which had become perfectly smooth and creamy. The smell rising from the saucepan was intoxicating, promising comfort and warmth. "I think it's ready," Diana announced, reaching for 2 mugs from the rack beside the range. Harry watched as she ladled the hot chocolate into the mugs, his eyes wide with anticipation. When Diana handed him his mug, he held it carefully with both hands, breathing in the rich aroma. They sat together at the large wooden table in the center of the kitchen, their mugs steaming between them. The space around them felt enormous, but their small circle of warmth and light made it intimate. Harry took his first sip and closed his eyes in bliss. "This is the best hot chocolate in the entire world," he declared. Diana smiled, tasting her own. It was good, rich and smooth and satisfying in a way that went beyond flavor. But she suspected that Harry's enthusiasm had less to do with the quality of the chocolate and more to do with the circumstances of its creation. "Mummy," Harry said after a few minutes of comfortable silence, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, darling. You can ask me anything." Harry stared into his mug for a moment, gathering courage for whatever question was coming. When he looked up, his blue eyes were serious in a way that seemed far too mature for his 6 years. "Do you ever get scared? Like really, properly scared?" The question hit Diana like a physical blow. She had been prepared for many things, but not for this level of honesty from her little boy. Not for him to see through her composed exterior to the uncertainty that lived underneath. For a moment, Diana considered giving him the safe answer, the royal response that would maintain the illusion that adults, particularly royal adults, were above such human frailties. But sitting in this kitchen at nearly 3 in the morning, with her son's nightmare still fresh in the air between them, the safe answer felt like a betrayal. "Yes," Diana said quietly. Yes, I do get scared. Sometimes very scared. Harry's eyes widened slightly. What about? Diana took a sip of her hot chocolate, buying herself time to find the right words. How could she explain to a 6-year-old the complex fears that kept her awake at night? The worry that she wasn't being a good enough mother, that she was failing her children by not being stronger, more perfect, more like the royal wives who had come before her. I get scared that I might make mistakes that hurt the people I love, she said finally. I get scared that I might not be brave enough when you and William need me to be brave. I get scared that the world might be too harsh for you both, and that I won't be able to protect you from it. Harry nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to him. Is that why you came to my room so fast tonight? Because you were scared I was hurt? Partly, Diana admitted. When I heard you screaming, I was terrified that something terrible had happened to you. That's what happens when you love someone as much as I love you. Their fear becomes your fear. Their pain becomes your pain. But you came anyway, Harry observed, even though you were scared. Diana looked at her son, struck by the simple wisdom in his words. Yes, I came anyway. That's what being brave means, isn't it? Harry said. Being scared but doing the right thing anyway? Diana felt tears prick at her eyes. When had her little boy become so insightful? When had he learned to see so clearly to the heart of things? Yes, sweetheart, she whispered. That's exactly what being brave means. Harry took another sip of his hot chocolate, and Diana could see him processing this information, filing it away in whatever internal space children use to make sense of the adult world. Mummy, he said after a while, I don't think I'm scared of the monsters anymore. No, no, because if you can be scared and still be brave, then maybe I can too. And besides, he added with a small smile, monsters probably don't like hot chocolate, so if I make some whenever they come back, maybe they'll leave me alone. Diana laughed, the sound echoing softly through the enormous kitchen. I think that's an excellent strategy, and if the monsters are particularly stubborn, we can always make it together. Middle of the night hot chocolate seems to have special power against bad dreams. They finished their hot chocolate in comfortable silence, the warmth spreading through their bodies and chasing away the last remnants of the nightmare that had brought them here. Diana watched Harry's eyelids grow heavy, his small body finally relaxing fully for the first time since she'd found him screaming in his bed. Come on, little one, she said softly, standing and reaching for his hand. I think it's time to get you back to bed. As they made their way back through the quiet corridors of the palace, Harry walking sleepily beside her, Diana reflected on what had just happened. They had broken rules tonight, violated protocols, stepped outside the careful boundaries that usually contained their lives. And somehow, in doing so, they had found something more precious than propriety. They had found each other. Back in Harry's room, Diana tucked him into bed, smoothing his covers and brushing a kiss across his forehead. Mummy, Harry murmured, already half asleep. Thank you for making magic hot chocolate with me. Thank you for letting me, Diana whispered back, as she stood in the doorway watching him drift into peaceful sleep. Diana made a silent promise. She would find more moments like this, more opportunities to step outside the rigid structure of royal life and simply be human with her children. Because tonight had taught her something important. Sometimes the most powerful thing a mother could give her child wasn't protection from the world, but honesty about her own place in it. Years later, after Diana's death, Prince Harry would tell his brother William about that night. He would describe the taste of homemade hot chocolate in the palace kitchen, the feeling of his mother's hand in his as they walked through moonlit corridors, the moment when she admitted that she got scared too. She made me feel like it was okay to be afraid, Harry would say. But more than that, she showed me that being afraid didn't mean being weak. It just meant being human. Today, when Prince Harry's own children wake from nightmares in their California home, he takes them to the kitchen. Together, they make hot chocolate from scratch, stirring love and patience into the warm milk, creating their own small rituals of comfort and connection. The monsters may still come in dreams sometimes, but they are no match for a parent's love, served warm in a mug, shared in the quiet hours when the rest of the world is sleeping. Diana's legacy lives on in these small moments. in the understanding that true strength comes not from pretending to be perfect, but from having the courage to be vulnerably, authentically human. One midnight kitchen conversation at a time.